Okay, so today I wanted to share my number one favorite makeup product in every category right now. These aren't necessarily my number one products of all time, although a few of them might kind of fit that category. We'll see as I go through it. I'm actually going to film an updated version of my top three in every category. I usually do that every single fall. So stay tuned for that video. But instead of doing like a typical favorites video where I just sit down and hold up the products and talk about them, I wanted to actually apply all of these products on camera and kind of show you one of my go-to looks right now. These are the products that I'm loving right now, the products that I've been reaching for a lot over the last few months, kind of like my summertime favorites and the products I'll be using as we head into the fall season. So I hope you enjoy today's video. The only thing I'm missing is the e.l.f. Soft Glam Foundation. That's what I would have used. I feel like maybe my toddler grabbed it and hid it somewhere. I just used it the other day. I've been wearing it nonstop. But as I was pulling all of the products together for today's video, I just couldn't find it anywhere. So keep in mind that would have been my foundation pick. So I just applied the Bioma Lip Tide Lip Oil. I really like this formula. I just hate the packaging. It gets so messy. It ends up leaking everywhere. And because this is a little bit of like a thicker, almost sticky lip oil, it just makes an absolute mess if you accidentally knock it over. So I can't bring this with me on the go anywhere. Like I can't put it in a makeup bag. I can't put it in a purse. But I just set it like standing up where I do my makeup, and then it's usually fine. It's a very nourishing, very moisturizing formula, so it's actually great if you apply it before you do your makeup, because then at the end, when you're ready to apply your lip product, your lips are prepped and ready to go. For primer, I've been loving the e.l.f. Jelly Pop, which is no secret. I've been talking about this a lot on my channel ever since e.l.f. relaunched the Jelly Pop collection for the summertime. It's honestly just the best. I actually need to repurchase this before they decide to take the collection away. They typically bring it back every summer. It's like, just make it permanent. I understand they're trying to like drum up hype by saying it's limited edition, but so many people love this collection, love this primer. And of course, the Power Grip is a really good alternative, but this one's just a little bit better. I usually switch back and forth between like a gripping primer or a smoothing mattifying primer, but this summer, like this has been my go-to because even though it is more of a hydrating primer, it really locks your makeup into place so well. And I just noticed a difference in the way my makeup wears throughout the day and the way it looks. Like it makes my skin look incredibly smooth. So without a doubt, this has been my number one primer. I am going to apply a little bit of eye primer. I've actually been doing that before I go in with foundation because sometimes I apply a little bit of foundation on my eyes. This is from e.l.f. It's the Lock It Down eyeshadow primer. This is kind of what got me back into eye primer because before this, I was skipping it a lot and just using like concealer and powder. And sometimes I still do that, especially if I'm in a hurry. But this one really does make a difference. It's very creamy. If you have fine lines or wrinkles or texture around your eyes, and you feel like a lot of powder shadows kind of enhance that, and it might not look as smooth as you would typically want it to, this is a really great option because I feel like it makes every eyeshadow kind of have the appearance of a cream shadow. Like every shadow, even my most powdery, dry looking shadows, end up looking very smooth on the eyes. So I swear that makes such a difference and it's only a few dollars. Like I said, for foundation, I would have been using the e.l.f. Soft Glam Foundation if I could find mine. I found a shade that actually works perfectly for me, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I'll list it in the description box below in case we have similar skin tones. The original two that I bought were too yellow toned, and I was avoiding the one that was actually labeled or that they were marketing as like a cool toned foundation because I wasn't sure if it was going to be too pink, but it actually has a really nice neutral undertone. I just used it in a recent video. It was on like drugstore makeup that I think performs better than high end. I'll link it below if you want to see it in action. This is just the Catrice True Skin, which is kind of, it's my number one in the category of all time. So even when I have another like current favorite, this is still my number one and I wear it all the time. So I'm just going to use this one for today's video because even though I do love the e.l.f. one and that really has been my go-to, I still end up wearing this foundation at least like once or twice a week all year long, like no matter what other formulas I'm currently loving. It has actually been a foundation summer for me. During the spring, I was using concealer a lot of the time and I would skip foundation and just kind of spot conceal and blend it out, whether that was the Natasha Denona one or the Tower 28 one. But this summer, I've actually been taking the time to apply foundation, and I think it's because it's just so hot out and I want my makeup to last when I am wearing makeup. Honestly, for concealer, I think I've been using this one the most. I wasn't sure like when I sat down to film this video, but this really is the one I probably grab the most often, even though there are other formulas I really like. And in the end, I kind of reach for a few of them interchangeably. The Tower 28 concealer is just so thin. So it's nice because it doesn't feel like I'm wearing a lot of makeup on my skin when I am wearing it. I don't know if letting your concealer kind of like dry for a few minutes does make a difference in the way it wears, but I heard that as a tip once, and I feel like whenever I do it, it makes a difference, but I'm also not sure if it's just in my mind. So I mean, I figure it doesn't hurt because I have to apply some other products anyway. So for bronzer, I have been using this one nonstop. I feel like I'm going to need to repurchase it during the, no, I still have a lot in here. Okay, so I was going to say, I feel like I'm going to need to repurchase it during the Sephora VIB sale because I've been using it so often, but I guess you really don't need a lot of it. So it's like one of those products that no matter how much you use it, it feels like you're never going to get to the bottom of it because it is so creamy, but also so pigmented. So it blends out really easily, but you don't need a lot to get the color payoff you're looking for. Anyway, this is from LYS Beauty. It is the No Limits Cream Bronzer Stick, and I have the shade Hope. So I'm just going to apply this directly to my bronzer brush, but I also feel like you could apply this directly to the skin. Like normally I don't like to apply cream products directly to the skin because they do lift my foundation underneath. And one day I was like in a hurry, so I was just swiping it on my skin. And honestly, because it is so creamy and just so smooth, I feel like it's just the perfect consistency to, I applied too much on this side. This always happens when I'm talking. Normally I don't apply that much, but I feel like as I get talking about the products, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. What I was saying is because of the texture of this product, like it's not so overly dewy that it ends up erasing your foundation underneath. It's just a really nice creamy consistency. It's gorgeous on the skin. Again, too much on this side, I'll kind of blend that in. But I really like the tone of this. Like it's obviously a warmer bronzer. It just doesn't look as orangey on the skin as some other bronzers I've tried. And I go over it with powder and everything like that, which kind of tones it down too. But the texture is just so nice. It wears so well. Like it probably has topped the Makeup by Mario cream bronzer for me, which that was like my #1 favorite of all time. But I like this one a little bit better. Honestly, I've been using it all summer long. I've even been reaching for it over the Makeup Revolution bronzer. And I feel like the main reason I originally started reaching for it is because it was a little bit of a lighter shade. And sometimes I just feel like the Makeup Revolution one is maybe too orangey on my skin tone. And then I just started using it more and more, and I honestly can't put it down. So such a good option. I'm just going to work on blending that concealer in a little bit, but you know what? I've been doing all three, or I've been doing cream bronzer, cream blush, and concealer kind of at the same time. And then I'll just go back over like all of the areas and just kind of do them as one step instead of 3 separate steps, just so everything looks a little bit more even. Maybe if I make this like a series on my channel, I can include some of my favorite brushes too. But this is the Sigma Soft Blend Concealer Brush, and I love it. I haven't discovered a concealer brush that I've loved as much as the Smashbox Cream Cheek Brush, which I tried for the first time like probably 7 or 8 years ago. And that one is originally meant to be like a cream blush, cream bronzer brush. So it's a little bit more rounded, whereas this one is like tapered. So it is perfect for concealer, and I can't stop using it. The new Essence Baby Got Blush formula is so gorgeous. It is one of my favorite liquid blush formulas I've tried in a long time. So I originally bought the shade Dusty Rose, but I just recently got this one in Pinkalicious. I kind of want to mix them together because I wasn't a big fan of pink blush and pink cheek products for a long time, but this summer I have actually been wearing a lot of pink blush and pink lip products. There's a pink liquid blush from Rare Beauty that's really beautiful, and then I've been topping it with like the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blushes on top. So I thought mixing these two shades together would actually be perfect, just because, like I said, I've kind of been enjoying pink lately. And for a while, I just wasn't really into pink. So I just think pink is like very pretty, very fresh, great for summertime. The reason why I like this blush formula so much is because it just looks so natural on the skin. Like it honestly blends out in seconds. These are definitely more on the sheer side. There's not a ton of pigment. And I do feel like a lot of the liquid blush formulas out there these days, I'm going to add a little bit more of the shade Pinkalicious on this side. What was I saying? I think a lot of the liquid blush formulas out there these days have a ton of pigment, which is really great because, you know, you don't have to work to really build them up. And, you know, some formulas are a little bit easier to customize, like you can sheer them out And obviously they can work for all different skin tones. If you're someone who doesn't typically wear like a lot of pigmented blush or just cheek products in general, I think a lot of the liquid blush formulas out there might seem kind of intimidating. And if that is the case, I highly recommend trying this formula from Essence because it just blends out. It's very natural, very lightweight, very, very sheer, and it just looks really pretty on the skin. Now you can obviously, go over it with powder blush or set it into place, which is what I typically do, not just with this liquid blush formula, but really any. I feel like powder blush just kind of locks it in and just usually gives me the more of the finish I'm looking for. Just going to take a little bit of that bronzer on my nose just to kind of contour, which it's obviously warmer than a typical contour shade. I don't know. I need to find like a good cream contour shade. I usually just take the bronzer shade though, because I feel like it kind of ties everything together. And then once I set it with powder, it tones it down a little bit anyway. So that's kind of it for the cheek products for now. Because I have oily skin, I have to set everything into place. Otherwise, I would love the fact that my skin looks so dewy and so glowy. So I've actually been using this. This is an older favorite. It's the Essence Brighten Up Banana Powder. I've been using this directly under the eyes because it is brightening, but it's also just so smoothing. Like you can see the difference between this side and this side. I feel like this is a powder that you don't have to be careful with because it has this very silky, very lightweight texture. So other powders can kind of look very heavy, very cakey on the skin if you over apply them. And I really don't feel like you can over apply this. I usually use this in like the entire center of my face. It is a banana toned powder, but I almost feel like, I can't speak for everyone, on my skin tone, it almost pulls translucent, but I also have some yellow to my skin, or I use like a lot of yellow based complexion products. So if you have a different skin tone than me, you might not want to go in on like your entire face with this. I really love the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop powder as well, and I'll usually use this for like the rest of my face. And if I'm just using this under the eyes, I'll usually use this to like set the rest of my T-zone as well. And I'll just take a brush. This one is the Sigma F25 tapered face brush. I'm just going to kind of like load this on the brush and just gently set the rest of my makeup into place. Now I do go over all of my cheek products. I don't usually go in with a lot of powder because, like I said, I do like powder bronzer, powder blush, but just a little bit to kind of erase like that super dewy finish because it is summertime. Again, my skin is oily, so I have to set it, otherwise it just won't last. I usually save powder blush, powder bronzer for the very end. And I don't know why. I think it's because I usually just like my makeup to kind of sit for a few minutes and then I'll see like if I actually want to go in with the powders, or I don't know. For whatever reason, I feel like they just make sense at the end. So let me do the brows and then we'll move on to the eyes. I don't really have any like new brow products I've been loving. I just have my staple favorites, the NYX Stick It Brow Gel. And then, I mean, right now I am using the Milani Weekend Brow. This is their brow pen. I kind of use this one and the NYX one interchangeably. It just depends which one I have on hand. I usually switch back and forth. So right now I'm using Milani. Okay, for the eyes, I've been keeping it very, very simple, but I wanted to use my favorite eyeshadow palette right now. This is from LA Girl. It is the Sunset Daze palette. This quality is so good. What video did I just see where I talked about this? I can't remember, but I'll insert the swatches for you so you can see what they look like. These shadows blend so easily. I'm going to keep it pretty simple today. I'll start with this shade right here and just blend that into the crease. I've always been a fan of LA Girl shadows, but I feel like this palette just feels extra nice. Like the shadows are just very smooth, very, very creamy. I want them to do, well, I don't really know exactly what I want them to do. They have two that they launched. They launched this one, and then the other one is even more warm toned, which is kind of surprising because I feel like this one does have a good amount of warm tones in it. I would love like a very toned down palette. I guess something kind of boring. Not necessarily like a full-on cool smoky palette, but just some shadows that aren't quite as warm or vibrant. I feel like that would be nice because this is such a good everyday formula. Because it is so creamy and it just blends itself basically, it's so nice to use on days where I just don't want to spend a lot of time on my eye makeup, but I maybe still want to use eyeshadow. I still wear eyeshadow most of the time. Even if I'm in a hurry or not doing like very dramatic makeup, I'll usually still take like a bronzer in the crease at least. And then a highlight or like a glowy shade all over the lid. So I'm just going to blend this one out, and then I think I'll go a little darker for the crease. I might take a little bit of this shade right here, which actually does lean a little cooler. I don't typically use this shade in the palette because I feel like most of the time I am reaching for like the very warm orangey tones. I barely touched my brush in there because these shadows are so pigmented, and I feel like this one's like a little bit darker than I'm really wanting to go right now. I'm just going to keep the eyes very simple today. I actually don't think I want to go much deeper than that, so it's pretty light, pretty soft. I'm just going back in with that original shade to kind of blend out the edges. But that's really what I've been doing during the summer season. Fall for me is more of like a heavy eyeshadow time, just because I love the golds. I love like the cool tone smoky looks. I actually just did a video using the Urban Decay Naked palette because Urban Decay brought this back. And I honestly feel like I'm going to be using this one quite a bit during the fall season. I got a little bit of like a cooler smoky eye in my recent video, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it below. For the lid, I'm just taking this lightest shade, or this light shimmer shade right here, and blending it all over just to add some nice glow to the eyes. This shadow kind of reminds me of a few different Super Shock shadows. Like it gives the very same effect that a Super Shock shadow does, but this is more of just like a traditional powder shadow. So if you don't like the Super Shock shadow texture, but you like the effect, I think you would really like this. I'm a Super Shock shadow fan. I honestly feel like I could do my makeup with a Super Shock shadow every single day, but I do like that this has a very, very similar effect, and it's nice because it's just right in the palette. I'm just going to tightline with this black pencil liner. This is from Too Faced in Killer Black. And, oh, I can't do this and talk at the same time. I just feel like that makes a little bit of a difference. And I haven't been wearing liquid liner all the time, but when I do, this has actually been my favorite. It's from Makeup by Mario. It's the Master Mattes liquid liner in black. A few things that I love about this: it is a super black dramatic liner. So if you're someone who feels like a lot of liquid liners lean kind of like a dark gray or a little bit charcoaly, but they're not like that rich, deep black, this is a great one to try. I also like this because it's very rich. So like the second you touch the felt tip to your eye, you're going to get color, but it doesn't come out so quickly. Like I've kind of switched back from using brush tips to mainly felt tips because I do feel like I get a little bit more control when I'm doing my liquid liner. So it is easy to get more of a subtle wing with this liner than it is with maybe a brush tip where the liner comes out super quickly. And then of course it does stay in place really, really well throughout the day too. Okay, that is quite possibly the worst eyeliner application I think I've probably ever done. But I just spent like 5 minutes trying to fix it, and I have to move on because I think I'm making it worse and worse. So for a lot of the summer, I've been using the Tower 28 Make Waves mascara, which is my favorite of all time. But recently I rediscovered this combo and I can't get enough of it. So I'm starting with the Essence Lash Princess. This one is the pink one, the Curl and Volume. This one does a really great job of creating a ton of volume, and it does lift and curl the lashes. So that's great if you're someone who either likes to skip an eyelash curler or you just like a voluminous curled look, because it's going to make them look super thick. So on its own, this one is nice, but then I go in and top it with the false lash effect. So let me just apply like 2 coats of this, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I top it. And then I'm just going to take the false lash effect one and go over the very ends just to kind of add a little more length. Even though I love the curl and volume, I don't feel like I don't feel like I get the length that I want. Like you can just see an instant difference with one little coat between these two sides. So I feel like combined, these are perfect. And I used to layer mascara all the time, and then I just kind of stopped. But I do feel like when I have an extra minute and I layer this one on top, ooh, the only problem is I get it everywhere, and then I have to wait for it to dry because this is, well, both of these are pretty new, and in general, they are pretty wet formulas, so I feel like they haven't dried out at all yet. So they do end up looking just a little bit messy, but once they dry, I just take an eyelash comb. Where is it? I have this one right here from, I think, is this from Amazon? And then I'll just comb through the lashes and it will just separate any clumps. Okay, my camera wasn't recording. I just applied a little bit of this eyeliner on my waterline. This is from Essence. It's the Stay and Play gel eyeliner in the shade Silky Nude. I've really been liking this one. It's very creamy. I feel like it leans a little bit more white than I would like it to. I have a couple of other light nude eyeliners that I feel like maybe look a little bit more natural. I think I am going to add a little bit more bronzer. This is from e.l.f. It's just the primer infused bronzer, which has been my go-to for the last few months. This is my favorite bronzer brush of the moment. It's from e.l.f. as well. I guess I have a lot of e.l.f. favorites in this video. It's the cream and powder face brush. So on one side, you get a brush that's actually really great for creams. And it's pretty dense, so I don't end up using it every single time. I prefer that other e.l.f. brush for cream bronzer and cream blush, the Complexion Duo brush. This one's a little bit more flexible, so I almost prefer that for cream, but this powder side is so good. It just applies cheek products so well. So I use it for bronzer, I'll use it for blush. It's a little bit of a newer brush, I think. I don't know if I got it from Ulta or directly from e.l.f.'s website, but I like it because it's not too fluffy. Like sometimes I love this brush from Real Techniques. This is like their big, what's it called? The blush brush. It's like a big fluffy powder brush, but sometimes when it's too fluffy, I feel like my bronzer or blush application just isn't exactly what I want. So anyway, it's summertime. I feel like a lot of bronzer is always nice for the summer. Like I said, I have been using the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blushes a ton. I'm going to take this pink one. This one is Pink Flush. It is very glittery, but it's like the prettiest pink. Kind of matches my nails. And actually, I'm just going to take that Real Techniques brush and just tap off like a lot of the excess and just go over the cheeks. This is such a gorgeous finish because it is so light, so airy. So that's why I love these baked blushes from Essence. They're very subtle. So if you are wanting to apply like a liquid blush and then go over it directly with a powder blush, these are perfect. They're a really good alternative to the Rare Beauty baked blushes. I feel like they give a very similar look, but they're like $6. They're super inexpensive. I actually have a video on my list. I was going to film it right after this, but I don't know if I'm going to today. It will either be up on my channel right before this video or right after. I'm going to talk about my favorite blushes of all time, and the Essence ones made my list. So for highlight, I've really been loving my Rare Beauty highlighters. Look how ridiculous this looks. This one is the shade Mesmerize. All of my Rare Beauty highlighters have completely shattered, but I feel like even once they get down to this point, there's still enough product in there that you can use it and it still looks good on the skin. So instead of repurchasing it, I've just been using it. I always think about repurchasing it, but like all of my Rare Beauty highlighters look like this. I have four. Three of them look like this. And I'm like, am I really going to repurchase them? Because they're just going to end up like this again. Such a fragile formula. My Becca highlighters always broke back in the day, and I thought those were fragile. No, the Rare Beauty ones, honestly, like you have to treat them like they're glass basically. But they're so pretty on the skin. I feel like they're amazing for summer. They're very, like they do give like that intense highlight to the skin. They're not subtle. During summer, I've really been enjoying a little bit more of an intense highlighter. And because this one has a little bit of pink to it, I feel like it just kind of melts with the blush. Today, my blush is a little bit more subtle. There are days in the summer where I feel like I go kind of heavy with blush. I definitely wouldn't say I'm someone who has like blush blindness, because if anything, I feel like I don't always love it on me as much, but this summer I've kind of been embracing it a little bit more, especially like a good pinky blush. I just feel like it's very pretty. So for lips, I've also been reaching for a lot of pinks lately, which again, just hasn't really been my thing for at least a few years at this point. So I usually kick things off with the ColourPop Lippy Pencil, specifically in the shade Oh Snap. This is kind of like a pinky nude. I feel like it's the perfect touch of pink without being like a bright, vibrant hot pink. And then I've been wearing the ColourPop So Juicy Lip Oils a ton lately. This one's in the shade Trending Now, which I think is so fun. It's like a brighter pink, but it's not so bright that I feel like it's almost a Barbie pink or a bubblegum pink. It's a little more toned down than that. And then I also feel like the lip liner kind of helps to give it a little bit of like a deeper tone too. These are just so nice though, because they're incredibly glossy, very smooth. They're also really moisturizing. So after it wears off, my lips feel good. But honestly, I'll like throw this on when I leave the house, and then like 4 or 5 hours later, I feel like my lips still feel nice. They might not have like the same color because it's going to wear off as I like talk and eat and drink, but there's still like a little bit of a glossy sheen. And again, my lips just feel really nourished. They do have like a pretty minty scent and a cooling sensation. So just something to point out if you're not a fan of that, but I do really like them. A couple of other shades I like. Hits Diff leans more like, it's kind of similar to my lip color. It kind of looks more similar to the Oh Snap lip liner as well. I would say it's slightly more nude toned and a little rosy, but it's still kind of pink. And then Flirty Text is like basically clear, but there's like a tiny red tint to it. So this one's great too. So that is basically it. That's how I've been doing my makeup lately. These are all of my go-to favorite products right now. I've been just wearing like a lot of pink blush, a lot of pink lip colors. I will skip the eyeliner pretty much like every other time I do my makeup. And maybe in the summer I've been skipping it a little bit more just because it takes extra time and I don't always feel like I need eyeliner or want to wear it. So that's like the one change that I might make. But for the most part, that's like everything I've been doing for most days when I do my makeup. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know if you like this style of favorites videos. I think it's fun to switch it up every once in a while. So maybe I'll do like the typical favorites video and then do this like every other time I do one. But thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I'll see you very soon with a new one. Bye.